Hello, hello. Hello, could I make a quick announcement? We're going to pass a sign-up sheet so we can at least have a little bit of structure as far as who comes up to speak. We'll get that out. We're getting it printed. Unfortunately, we weren't able to use the electronic one because it's tied to Monday's meeting. So we'll get a sign-up here shortly. So if you just be patient, we'll get started here shortly.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. And we're going to get started right now. Thank you.
If you live in Commerce City, odds are you've heard the term Metro District, and you may even live in one. But what is a Metro District? What do they do? How are they created? And how do they work in conjunction with the city? You've got questions, we've got answers. A metropolitan district is similar to a school district, fire district, or water district, which use tax money from within the district to provide two or more necessary infrastructure services to residents that the city does not provide. In many Commerce City neighborhoods, Metro districts fund the construction of infrastructure, such as water and sanitation, roadway improvements, landscaping, and in some cases, neighborhood parks and recreation. So how and why are Metro districts created? As homes and other types of development are constructed, the costs of building infrastructure are significant. Developers have a hard time funding it without significant increases to home prices, and the city can only fund it by raising taxes on all residents, even those who don't live in these developments. To alleviate these huge costs, property owners create metro districts. These districts issue bonds to pay for infrastructure that are guaranteed by the taxes they will collect. To create a district, developers submit a service plan to the city. The plan lays out the services the metro district will provide, along with how they will pay for them.
Once their plan is approved by City Council, the Metro District Service Plan is adopted and an election is held among property owners to determine who sits on the board of directors.
How are metro districts governed, and what role does city leadership play?
A metro district doesn't happen without approval from city leaders. But once it is up and running, it operates separately from city government. While the city can recommend changes or updates to various terms and regulations, any new rules or amendments cannot be done without approval from both sides.
So why are we here today? If you live in Commerce City, odds are you've heard the term Metro District, and you may even live in one. But what is a Metro District? What do they do? How are they created? And how do they work in conjunction with the city? You've got questions, we've got answers.
A metropolitan district is similar to a school district, fire district, or water district, which use tax money from within the district to provide two or more necessary infrastructure services to residents that the city does not provide. In many Commerce City neighborhoods, metro districts fund the construction of infrastructure, such as water and sanitation, roadway improvements, landscaping, and in some cases, neighborhood parks and recreation.
So how and why are metro districts created?
As homes and other types of development are constructed, the costs of building infrastructure are significant. Developers have a hard time funding it without significant increases to home prices, and the city can only fund it by raising taxes on all residents, even those who don't live in these developments. To alleviate these huge costs, property owners create metro districts. These districts issue bonds to pay for infrastructure that are guaranteed by the taxes they will collect. To create a district, developers submit a service plan to the city. The plan lays out the services the metro district will provide, along with how they will pay for them. Once their plan is approved by City Council, the Metro District Service Plan is adopted and an election is held among property owners to determine who sits on the board of directors.
How are metro districts governed, and what role does city leadership play?
A metro district doesn't happen without approval from city leaders. But once it is up and running, it operates separately from city government. While the city can recommend changes or updates to various terms and regulations, any new rules or amendments cannot be done without approval from both sides.
So why are we here today? And what will happen with metro districts going forward? That's where you come in. We want to hear from you.
Last December, Council passed an ordinance placing a moratorium on the creation of new metro districts in the city. With so much continued development around the city, Council wanted to make sure you, the residents, have the opportunity to give input about what metro districts will look like in the city going forward. Any updated regulations the city would consider would only affect new metro districts, as the city cannot alter an existing service plan without working together with the district.
Thank you for sharing your feedback and comments about metro districts and their impact on residents, developers, and the community at large. To learn more and provide additional input on the topic, please visit c3gov.com/metro districts.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sitting through the video. I know that was just me up there. Now you have to listen to me again, but it's great to see such a big turnout for such an important topic. This is your opportunity to have your voice be heard by council and by staff on an issue that I know is incredibly important to everyone in this room and everyone in this community. So we'll get started here in just a moment. Councilwoman Noble will be in charge of kind of facilitating the flow of traffic up to the microphone. There will be a 5-minute time limit. Once you start speaking, I'll start the timer. We have a lot of people here and we want to respect everyone's time, so please limit your remarks to 5 minutes once that timer goes off. Other than that, just please be quiet while other people are up here talking. And please, we'll put the QR code back up, but fill out the survey. We're asking a few questions to help get council as much information as they can ahead of their discussion of this topic Monday night at their study session. So I'll put that QR code back up there and you can fill that out while you're waiting for your turn to speak. Again, thank you so much for coming out on a beautiful Saturday.
Thank you, John Bergeli. Again, I'm Susan Noble. I represent Ward 4, which has all metro districts. I'd also like to introduce council members at large who are with me today. Councilmember Douglas, and Councilmember Kim, and Councilmember Hurst. All three of them are at large and represent all of Commerce City. We want to start by giving you all an opportunity to speak. I think we can ask questions, but our job is to listen to you and not to express our own opinions. So thank you so much for being here. As John said, it is a beautiful day out there, so it just shows how important metro districts are in our communities. Please give your name, your address, and who you represent, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you so much. First speaker is David Busby.
Good afternoon. My name is David Busby. Try to back away so I don't get the feedback. I've been in Commerce City for 57 years. And I now live at 11136 Quintero Court, Commerce City, Colorado. I think I can feel for some of the decisions you're making with regard to metro districts, since I was on the city council for 22 years, from 1977 to 1999. 12 of those years, I was mayor of this city. And so my first question to city council and staff, why have metro districts at all? They don't benefit the residents of the city. If you think you do, you'll have to explain it to me. The only thing it does is fill the home builders' pockets with money, and for allowing them to double dip. When I was on city council, we had the first developments in the city. We did a tremendous amount of annexation because we knew development was going to happen. First one was Eagle Creek. We did not form a metro district to build that. Jim Harmon built those homes, he put the infrastructure in, and he allocated the costs to put that infrastructure in against those houses. He didn't have to charge a tremendous amount of money to the customers buying those homes that put them out of range of other builders around the metro area. Second one was River Run, put in by Melody Homes. They didn't come to the city council and ask for a bunch of money to put in the infrastructure. They allocated that cost against the cost of the home. As you can see, they sold all those homes. They were competitive. So now the developer comes to the city somewhat time along the way decided to partnership with the home builders. I don't think the city council should be in a partnership with home builders. Let them put the infrastructure in just like they do all over the United States and allocate that cost to the cost of the home. I'll kind of give you some numbers that I gave to you earlier when I spoke to the city council. I lived at 6851 Jasmine Street. There was no metro district there either. All of the infrastructure that was put in there was put in and allocated to the cost of the home. My taxes there were $2,079 2 years ago when I lived in that house. I sold that house for $475,000 2 years ago. My wife wanted to move. She wanted a nicer place. I thought our place was pretty nice. So now we get to pay $8,258 instead of $2,079 for a home that's only worth $165,000 more. That seems ludicrous to me. Somebody made a lot of money. The worst part of it is all of these costs will continue to go up until the district that I live in is completed. So I asked the city council to ask themselves again, why do we need metro districts at all, let alone making them more palatable to home builders? And I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Busby. Rana Sanchez, please.
Hi, Rana Sanchez, 10680 Waco Street in Commerce City. My preference is to eliminate metro districts altogether. Despite what the developers continue to say, they are absolutely not necessary to develop new communities. This is the third home, or actually this is the fourth home we've built, and none of the other developments for the homes that we built were done with metro districts. What they need to do, which is how it was with my other homes, is build all the costs involved into the price of the home. When you mention that to the developers, they say, well, our homes are more affordable because we don't do that. Well, that's just a smoke and mirror illusion that makes developers richer and homeowners poorer. When you do it that way, the metro district taxes actually increase the cost of a home to homeowners year after year without any control. If they build it into the cost of a home, the homeowner will at least know what they will be paying years down the road. Other points I'd like to make. Please stop hiring economic development experts. You're wasting our money. No retailer is going to come here if they have to pay the high metro district taxes, which is what they have to do. They pay the same high metro district taxes that we do. The developers actually like having no retailers wanting to come here because they make more money with houses, so it's a perfect situation for them. Again, no business owner in their right mind would come here with these ridiculously high taxes, and I wish people running for office would quit saying that they'll bring more retailers here. They can't until the metro district taxing structure changes, and it's my understanding it never will, since you just said in that video, the city cannot go back and change the existing rules. I'm also tired of hearing that we need more rooftops, because that's a sham that keeps getting spouted by people. They know no one's going to come here anyway, so that's a handy excuse. If there's not going to be a cancellation of all metro districts, then at the very least, there should be a moratorium until the following is put in place. There needs to be residents who are not part of the developers or their cronies on the Reunion Metro District. It is bad enough that developers established a parent-child relationship between the Reunion Metro District and the North Range Metro Districts, but then continuing to allow developers to pull all the strings is so wrong. There is such an incestuous relationship between the developers, the Reunion, HOA, the lenders, and formerly the North Range Metro Districts that it is maddening. In addition, all property in metro districts should be contiguous. Metro districts must be a minimum of 5 acres. These little plots of land that are owned by developers and their friends must be stopped. Absolutely no more parent-child districts should be allowed. This is taxation without representation, and I cannot believe that agreement was even allowed, since at the time it was agreed to, it was a contract between two of the same people. And I clearly remember from my intro to business class learning that a contract was an agreement between two parties. The agreement was between the Reunion Metro District and the North Range Metro Districts, which were all made up of developers, so I don't see how that could have been a fair contract. The Metro Districts also need to pay a percentage of their mill levy to the city to pay for oversight of the Metro Districts. Developers should not be able to make a profit on infrastructure, which they currently do. If Metro Districts are going to say they are separate from the HOA in their area, they should not be able to have the same people on the Metro District Board and the HOA Board, which is currently a common practice. In that video, it said that Metro Districts are like fire districts and school districts. And I really question that, since when I look at my taxes, the fire district and the school district make maybe $100, or I don't really know the exact amount, but then I see the metro districts are making thousands and thousands of dollars, so I'm not sure that that's a fair comparison. It also said that metro districts are formed by an election by property owners, which might sound legitimate, but it really isn't when you find out that the property owners in several of the metro districts are only developers and their friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. David Sanchez.
David Sanchez, 10680 Waco Street here in Commerce City. What they said, basically. I was not planning on speaking today, but then I got the fact sheet here, and the first thing that drew my eyes was number 3, the reimbursement rate for developers, increasing that from 80 to 100%. And that just kind of shocked me. Why would we want to continually increase the bottom line of a very successful group of developers? I mean, we're talking about folks who are backed essentially by the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett himself, and Berkshire Hathaway. These folks make a lot of money, and there's a reason why he invests in companies like this, is because they make money. He doesn't invest in losers. So I would be absolutely against number 3. I was actually a little surprised to see it was at 80% to start with. So many things I could say. Dave and Rana have both said a lot of what I wanted to say, and I'll just leave it at that. But I even look at the number of homes right now. I think we have like 4,000 homes, approximately, a little bit more than that, in metro districts. And if each house was increased by like $5,000, I believe that would be $20 million approximately that could either be used to reduce the debt that we already have, and homeowners would have their additional price, but I don't think that would be a price point that would break anybody. Obviously, you increase that number 15, 20,000, that number grows astronomically, and you could get rid of a lot of debt. But that didn't happen. I mean, it didn't happen. And that's unfortunately for homeowners, especially with what's happening in the market, what's happening to home prices. People's salaries are not keeping up, especially with the tax increases that we're all going to see. So I encourage you to maintain the moratorium on metro districts. And if we could eliminate them someday, that'd be my preference. On a little side note, there was mention of the HOAs, and the relationship with the metro district itself and how they are the same people. I'm on the board of Reunion Metro District number 2. And when we first started, we had our manager that we hired do a study of the properties, and it would take And it was initial estimate, but it could take almost $4 million just to get everything back to par because of everything that's in disrepair. And we're talking, all the different parks, all the vacant land, all the things like that. It was a pretty comprehensive look at the properties. And I just think that when you look at the maintenance mill levy, that's probably understated because we don't have enough money to actually come in and correct all that. And that needs to be corrected as soon as possible. If there's no reason for a new property area like this to look in shambles. I mean, if you look at 104th on the south side, that whole new development, you can see weeds that are taller, up to my waist almost. And I think it's disgusting that we're all paying taxes and we're not getting the service that we need. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your remarks. Tyrell Nelson?
No comment at this time.
Thank you. Roger Japp?
Thank you, Roger Japp, 10088 Salida Street in Commerce City. Thanks for taking the time to hear from us today. I think that I know that the four of you that are here have already heard me, what I'm about to say. It's put you guys in a bad position, in my opinion, because this really is a effort that needs to be fixed at the state level. Title 32 needs to be completely revamped, and I'm sad to say that I don't see any state legislators here that have any ability to make that happen. They continue to take the lobbyists from the developers. They continue to take the campaign donations from the developers so that they can maintain Title 32 in its current state. With that said, I appreciate the efforts of Commerce City. I support the moratorium that was enacted last year. I support that be maintained. As the president of North Range Metro District Number 1, I can tell you the dysfunction that exists between a master, let's just call it what it is, a master-slave, parent-child relationship between districts is an abomination on what should be happening in this country, in my opinion. The Reunion Metro District, for example, there is no accountability to those that board has to the citizens of this community. None of those folks live in this community. They just continue to spend our money, and most of it is going back into the pockets of a corporation that made well over $280 million in profit. Therefore, until we have the ability to ensure a few things: one, no more parent-child relationships should exist. Two, all metro districts that are created under new service plans, if you are going to release the moratorium, should consist of citizens of the community, not developers. The developers should not have the control over multi-million-dollar budgets that is eventually going to do nothing but support their efforts. And that should be also include members of the city council that should sit on those boards to provide oversight for the folks that can actually have some election ability to recall those folks. Currently, as a Reunion resident, I have no ability to recall any member of the Reunion Metro District because I don't live in the Reunion Metro District, although all of my property taxes go to them, which is just completely absurd to me. In looking at the fact sheet, which much as David had said, I had not seen until I walked in, I wanted to just go through a couple of things. And the first one would be a mill levy cap, which I totally support. If you are going to lift the moratorium, I do not believe that any metro district should get over 50 mills in a mill levy assessment. And number three, I wanted to just give a really short opinion of the developer reimbursement rate. Should be 0%. They should not be reimbursed anything. They should also not be allowed to give themselves loans in order to do the infrastructure and then charge exorbitant amounts of interest, which in the Reunion Metro District, we had a developer that had given themselves a $7 million loan and then charged us 40% interest. It is a money grab. That is all it is. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jab. Brandy Valdez.
Hi, I'm Brandy Valdez, and I live at 7550 Kearney Street in Commerce City, and I've been a resident for many years. I want to start by saying good afternoon. I want to start by saying thank you for having this opportunity to be able to have these conversations. I wish we had these for all of our issues. For example, about the added traffic that these new buildings are going to be bringing into our community. I am tired of our community and getting crammed with all these ugly buildings, the industrial crap, and the traffic that comes with them. When did our city become so greedy that we are now selling out to the highest bidder? I'm tired of feeling like our elected officials are trying to draw our attention to the left with certain issues and sneaking crap in on the right. Also, the builders doing the same to our elected representatives. I have heard many people voicing their same concerns while our pleas go ignored because it doesn't fit an agenda. It doesn't line pockets with the mighty dollar. How many times can you hear the same thing over and over and still in good conscience say it's what the people want? We want you to stop selling our community. We want you to keep your promises. We want the trust back, and we want elected leaders that are here for the people and remember they were once one of us, and I'm sure wanted to make a difference because you were fed up. Please don't make the same mistakes in the northern part of our community that were already made in the southern part. All of Commerce City, the north and the south, need to unite. We need to hold our elected leaders accountable for the promises they have made us, and we need to stand together to stop these developers from coming in and pushing us around, pushing their agendas, lining their pockets, and dividing our community and lying to our officials. A divided community is a weak community. Once the South runs out of places to put these eyesores, where do you think they're going to be infiltrating next? The North. And soon, these nightmares will also be in your backyard, affecting your property values, taxes, roadways, and children. North and South need to stand together and stand up for what is right for our community. We need to show these developers and businesses that Adams County cannot and will not be pushed around. We need to hold the powers that be to the promises that were made. We need to unite as one community and not be divided by this North and South crap, but as one and demand our voices be heard and that our wants and needs be valued. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valdez. Next up, Elizabeth Rivas.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Elizabeth Rivas. Si me pueden ayudar con la traducción, por favor.
We always have translators for our meetings, and we do for this one as well. Thank you.
Francisco, can you hear us? Francisco or Nora?
¿Aló? ¿Elizabeth? ¿Me escucha?
Sí.
Ok, perfecto. Por favor, comience y yo interpreto para usted.
Gracias. Muchas gracias por su ayuda. Hablo inglés, pero me pongo muy nerviosa, así que tengo que hablar en español cuando estoy en esta situación, ¿verdad? Ok, mi preocupación es acerca de la seguridad de los parques y vengo a abogar por los niños porque tenemos un parque muy bonito que fue construido.
Un momento. John, I think we're unable to hear the translation. Can anyone hear our translator? No. Okay, so let's get that figured out first. As you saw from the video, John is our management analyst. He's not, he's playing two roles today. He's not our typical IT person, so we'll have to hang on for a minute here.
Let's let Armando translate, please.
¿Escucha?
Because there's a problem with our communication. All right. Empieza otra vez y le digo.
Bueno, pues primero que nada, muchas gracias por su ayuda y proporcionar la traducción.
So thank you. First of all, thank you for your help and for the translation.
Mi nombre es Elizabeth Rivas, vivo en 6560 Niagara Street en Commerce City.
Siga. We got her information, so.
Y le digo que hablo inglés, pero me pongo nerviosa y vuelvo a mi idioma natal, que es español.
She gets nervous. She speaks English, but she gets nervous, so she's more comfortable doing it in Spanish.
Gracias. Por lo que estoy aquí hoy es para decirles sobre la seguridad de los niños en los parques.
She's here to talk about the security and the safety of the parks for the children.
Ya que yo llevo muy seguido a mis hijos a los parques, principalmente que está aquí, que es el Eagle Nest Park.
Specifically, Eagle Nest Park, where she does take her children quite often.
Que es un parque muy bonito. Lamentablemente ha estado invadido por las personas que no tienen casa donde vivir.
It's a beautiful park, but unfortunately, it's been invaded by those homeless individuals that go to the park.
Y mi preocupación es de que no sabemos en qué situación están, si están usando drogas en el momento, si ya han consumido drogas, y siempre tenemos que estar cuidando a nuestros hijos, más aún.
And the issue is, the homeless individuals, they don't know if they're on drugs or consume drugs, so they constantly need to be watching their children and keeping an eye for their safety.
Y no creo que sea justo para los niños y para las familias que el propósito de este parque es principalmente para ellos.
And they believe it's not fair to the children. The main principle or the main reasoning for the park is for the children, so it's not fair.
Y el otro día estuvimos en una junta con la policía y mencioné sobre esto, pero ya fue un poco apresurado.
And recently she attended a meeting with the Commerce City Police Department. When she brought this topic up, she felt rushed. ¿Qué más pasó?
Y entiendo la respuesta de ellos de que es un problema que la ciudad va a seguir enfrentando, pero también creo que puede haber otras soluciones.
And she was told by police it's a challenge or it's a issue that the city is constantly having to deal with. ¿Qué era la última parte?
Pero creo que hay soluciones para esto.
But she believes there's other solutions to take care of the homeless within the parks and the safety.
También creo que escuchando a todas estas personas hablando de nuevos edificios y construcción,
And then also the discussion in regards to bringing other buildings and other structures in the city.
me imagino que también vendrán parques a nuestra ciudad.
And my assumption is with the buildings and the infrastructure, there'll be more parks also added to the city.
Y entonces, ¿cómo vamos a tener la seguridad que necesitan nuestros hijos y nuestras familias cuando solamente hay 4 guardaparques?
And with that, obviously, there's going to be more issues with more parks if we can't take care of currently what we have, specifically with the 4 rangers that we currently have. How are they going to be able to make sure that the other parks are secure?
Espero que ustedes como padres entiendan mi preocupación y yo sé que son personas ocupadas y hay muchas cosas que tienen que hacer.
And I hope that you understand as being parents, I hope that you guys understand this and hopefully do something about this.
Y aprecio mucho su tiempo en escucharme. Muchas gracias.
And thank you for giving me the time to speak.
Muchas gracias. We do have people on Zoom who are waiting to speak as well. We don't. Okay, they have disappeared. All right, we don't. We will continue on then. I'm going to tell you who the next 4 people are so you can prepare yourselves. Charles Wolfelsberger, Jessica Reynolds, Anne Marie Tucker, and Larry Fout. So first up is Charles Wolfelsberger.
Hello and good afternoon, council members. I want to first thank you for your time on a Saturday afternoon. I'm sure you could be home with your families right now enjoying some time off, but you're not. You're here hearing our concerns and with metropolitan districts and with the city, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your time and your service. I'm Charles Wolfersberger. I'm district manager for actually quite a few districts within the Commerce City area. I won't go through that list, but I'm here as, I guess, not in representing any particular district, but I guess as a owner of a business that has concerns with the clients that we help and manage that are within your within the city. I wanted to focus my comments on two things. One is cash flow bonds, and the second one is just city oversight of metropolitan districts. And first item is on the cash flow bonds. I would recommend the city consider looking at cash flow bonds. I think that is going to be rather damaging, in my opinion, as a CPA, looking at these debt payoff schedules and the way cash flow bonds work and the impact it has on mill levies. That is going to, Colorado is going to be in significant shock for those who live in metro districts this coming year. We have a district in Grand County, got the first valuation report, and homes in this district in Grand County, their valuations went up 80%. I don't know what valuations are going to look like here in Adams County, but I'm hearing anywhere from 30 to 40% increases in valuations. Fortunately, for many of the districts that we manage, and to name a few, we've got Buckley Ranch, we've got Frontera Village, we've got Harvest Meadows, North Range Village, Foxton Village, Potomac Farms, Laredo, which is the Outlook community on the north side. Those districts have, with the homeowner boards, have flattened their tax structure so that they do not have cash flow bonds. If the assessed valuations go up in those districts, the mill levies go down. And the dollars out of homeowners' pockets are going to be the same, ignoring any inflation factors to operate the districts, but ignoring inflation, the dollars out of homeowners' pockets in those districts are going to remain the same. I can't speak to all the other tax districts that these homeowners pay into and how they will react to these increased valuations, but these homeowners have done a good job of flattening the tax in those districts. However, we have other districts that have cash flow bonds, and they are going to get financially hurt, these homeowners. Buffalo Highlands is a good example where you've got cash flow bonds. You've got a couple tax districts, not all of Reunion, but you have a couple tax districts in Reunion. Well, I mean, for different reasons, Reunion's going to get potentially hurt as well, but you have at least two districts in Reunion where they have cash flow bonds. So taxes there are going to hurt those homeowners as well. And that's part of the problem here is as valuations go up, you apply that against a fixed mill levy, and that means your taxes go up and payment of that debt. So that would be one thing I would recommend the council look at is cash flow bonds. The second item is city oversight. There is a requirement. It's in state code. It's Title 32, 32-1-1101.5. It's the quinquennial report. It's kind of a strange name, but it allows cities to review the financial position of districts and evaluate the total voter authorized debt that has been given to those districts and compare that against what's been authorized in the service plan and give these cities an opportunity to determine whether or not those districts have the ability to repay the debt that has been based on the authorization that's been granted by the voters. As you may or may not know, and I'll use Reunion as an example, their debt, where is it? In the service plan for North Range Districts 1 and 2, which is about, that's maybe what, 2/3 of the total population of rooftops within Reunion. Their service plans allow them to each borrow up to $280 million of debt. However, when these districts were formed and the developers were able to hold Tabor elections amongst themselves, even though they state in the service plans that they won't get voter authorization above 280 million, District 2, for example, right now has $1.2 billion of borrowing authority. District 1, their voter authority has expired, but when they did pass that election, it was $692 million of borrowing authority. So there's significant, and I'm running out of time, but I'll just wrap up by saying that in the service plans, you'll see that the financial plans for these districts, the original plan was to have 10 mills for operations and 35 mills for debt service. The reunion is far above that, and they planned on issuing a total of about $168 million or $148 million of construction costs, but right now they're 30% built out to plan, and they've issued 113% of the planned debt for their service plan. So they're not even close to what this financial plan was submitted to the city, and this was back in 2000, 2001. They're not even close to that financial plan right now. They're way off track, and those are some of the reasons why we've got tax problems in these districts and rising taxes. And the city does have a mechanism to have some oversight over that. So, sorry, I'm out of time, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfersberger. Jessica Reynolds.
Hi, council members. My name is Jessica Reynolds. I live at 1101 Cardinal Avenue in Brighton. However, I work as a district manager, and many of the districts that I work with are here in Commerce City. I spend a good portion of time in Commerce City, and it's a beautiful city. Things are growing, and it's really, you guys have done a good job. There are some concerns. First of all, I want to say that I'm actually not opposed to metro districts. That will be something maybe unusual you'll hear from district managers. For the last decade, I've been active in my own community. We had an HOA, and I served on its board. We had a collection problem. People sometimes don't pay their bills that they agree to pay. So we actually, as a homeowners association, had acres of land that we did not have the funding necessary to keep watered. We did not have enough to function because we had homeowners, upwards of almost 60% not contributing and paying their HOA dues. So that was a problem that our HOA board faced together as a community. We learned a little bit about metro districts. My community I live in actually didn't have a metro district. We were before 2000, so the new shiny toy was not available to play with. As a result, I don't have any builder debt. As the first gentleman spoke, you do not have to have a metro district to build out a city. It's not required. It is a new shiny toy, and it can work well, but it doesn't always. Actually, so what our HOA decided to do was we formed a metro district. We were one of the first ones in Brighton. We had to develop that, to write up a plan. They had no reference of what that looked like. So the benefit we got from that is everybody paid through their property taxes what they agreed to pay with the HOA dues. That was now collected through property taxes. We do have the set flat rate that Charles had just mentioned, so as our evaluations go up, our mill levy goes down. The amount that the metro district needs to function stays the same amount every year. So that can function well. As a result of switching to a metro district, we were able to eliminate costs for all of the collection fees. Our lawyer fees went way down, and we saved the community hundreds of thousands of dollars. So metro districts can work. An issue I would suggest that you definitely, and it's already been mentioned, but this parent-child metro district setup is a scam. Please do not approve any more of those. You have many of them. You have new ones that are building out. It is 100% a scam. And there are metro districts next door that don't have the same issue. Buffalo Run is right there niched in with North Range Metro 1. People live across the street. They don't even know which district they belong to, but they call me. I just happen to manage both of those. So they call me, and I tell them which pool they can go to for free and which pool they have to pay for, because they don't know. So I know it's often referred to as parent-child situation. That's not an accurate term, and here's why I believe that's not true. A parent does what's best for the benefit of the child. A parent has the knowledge and the ability to set things up and manage things for the benefit of the child. A parent does not burden a child with a level of debt that they will never be able to pay off. And a parent does not say that they will forever burden their child with debt and not give that child any say in so. A parent does what's best for his child with the hopes that someday that child will be able to represent itself and will gladly let go when that child is able to do so. That is not happening right now in your city. What you do have, and we're not the creators of the phrase, but you do have master-slave communities in which you have an unelected group of people making millions of dollars off of the residents who come moving into Commerce City, wanting to live here, wanting to raise their families here, having no idea what a metro district is. They don't know. And so I really hope that the city council will take their responsibility seriously, in that the residents, especially the new homeowners, people who are just getting into the development or real estate stage of life, they are looking at, they need the city council to look out what's best for them. And that's not gonna happen through a developer or builder. Now, we need developer and builders. They can do great things. We also represent other metro districts who do not have this problem. There are good builders. There are good developers. Unfortunately, what you have right now is a big hot mess. And the developers are saying that the community can't handle it. They don't want to let go because we don't know what we're doing. We are telling your community something different. You have people in your community who are capable and willing to represent, and they can manage their own metro district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Next up, Anne Marie Tucker.
Good afternoon. My name is Anne Marie Tucker, and I am a district manager for several communities in Commerce City. I just want to add, there's been several comments about metro districts and the good, the bad. I am involved in managing both sides of them, whether it be a complete mess or on that flat rate. I've been a part of the process of taking it from the hot mess to putting it on a flat rate to help homeowners, which does take time. It's not a quick process because we have to clean up the mess, which involves extra money on top of that, but it gets to that point. So I'm grateful to be able to be a part of that for those homeowners that are able to have that. I don't want to go over anything that's already been mentioned because I do agree there are benefits to metro districts, but also we see a lot of negatives right now because of the lack of oversight of the metro districts. But I want to go back to the comment that was brought up regarding that metro districts are the same as a fire district or as a school district. As far as being considered a special tax district, yes, they fall in that same category. However, a school district, a water district, a fire district, they don't have the beginning build out of that, of the board members being on the same side of the transactions. Meaning a metro district, you have the developer and builders at the beginning stages, making those decisions, making those financial decisions, and hiring the contractors, things like that, for them to also be on the board of that to approve those invoices and pay those bills. So yes, categorized special district, same, but not the same as far as the way they're established from the very foundation. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Larry Fout.
If I would have realized I was going to say something today, I would have dressed more appropriately.
It's a Saturday.
Yeah. So, my name's Larry Fout. I'm the president of Laredo Tax District. I live at 16013 East 124th Avenue. I want to start this off by saying I am not an opponent of a tax district. When I first moved into Outlook 14 years ago, I hadn't a clue, never even heard what a tax district was. I was approached by some fellow residents that asked me if I knew what was going on, and I didn't. And so I started doing research, and I really became kind of a proponent of tax districts. That is, tax districts that are run properly. When I found out and got involved with Laredo, I was not aware of the fact that our board of directors consisted of the board being the developer, made up with the vice president being an employee, a relative being a secretary, and the daughter of the vice president being the treasurer. I wasn't aware of just exactly how much the district had been set up, so it was a direct fund from our ownership and our taxes directly into his pocketbook. When I did become aware of that, I managed to get some of our residents together, and we went after it to get our members on the board. We were successful in doing so. And after discovering just how far off we were, the illegal activity that was going on, and I mean the illegal activity that was going on in our district, we couldn't sue ourselves. Basically, we couldn't go after him because we were suing ourselves. So we decided to clean it up. 5 years ago, that's when that started. Laredo Tax District is now flat rate. We've worked very hard on getting everything done appropriately. My question to you, as being the city council, is we're doing this injustice by just assuming that when we allow a developer to come in, he's going to set up the board with members that care about the community. He's not going to do anything but set up board members that believe in this. It has to have some kind of protection for the homeowner to get the homeowners involved in it. If the homeowners are involved in it, what you're trying to do is absolutely terrific. But don't give the fox a chance to guard the hen house, because it will never happen. Thank you very much. Next time I'll dress better.
You look wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Fowl. The next four speakers are Daniel Frank, Michael Kelly, Maria Noble, no relation, by the way, and Stephen Douglas. Daniel Frank.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Thank you for having this listening session today. My name is Daniel Frank. I'm the owner of the undeveloped property at the northwest corner of 96th and Tower. And fortunately, that property will remain undeveloped until one of two things happen. Either we have, a financing tool available to us to finance the massive infrastructure costs, or two, help from the city with that infrastructure. Unfortunately, South Lawn Elementary is catty corner to the site, and they're really going to be kind of the ones suffering the largest detriment of this infrastructure not being built. I know you all don't necessarily care about me or the developer, so their schools and residents are also being hurt by this. One of the things that I think was a good question that Mr. Busby brought up is why metro districts. And he gave some examples of the 70s up until about the mid-90s of projects that were not funded through metro districts. And there's a very good reason for that, and it's the Tabor Amendment. It is a Colorado constitutional amendment that took place, I believe, in 1996. John, you may know this. But it basically took away the city's power to increase its mill levy to pay for infrastructure. And so what the cities did at that time is said, okay, now that we cannot fund this infrastructure, we're going to give you, developer, both the obligation and the tool to fund these. And so that's kind of really what happened. And without, now that I have the obligation, but the tool has been taken away with me, I'm unable to develop. And so that property will continue to remain undeveloped, for the foreseeable future, because the costs simply outweigh. If I could sell 100% of that property today, the infrastructure to build, just the surrounding infrastructure, horizontal, outweighs the cost of everything I could sell it for. A couple other things I wanted to make mention of is the parent-child relationship. I agree. There's no reason for it. Mill levy caps, I absolutely agree with some of the, with the residents. Having an 88 mill levy in some cases is egregious. I don't think that under any circumstances that's necessary or reasonable. So I think that, we are actually on the same page as a lot of the residents. As long as the proper guardrails are in place, these districts can function well, with mill levy caps, with no parent-child relationships and things like that. One thing I did really want to quickly touch on before I step away is the board setup. And the reason for the board setup the way they are is if you were to take my piece of property, for example, there are no homeowners. There won't be any homeowners until years after, a year or two, the infrastructure is actually installed. Well, how do you install that infrastructure? You have to issue debt. How do you have a homeowner on the board that doesn't live there yet? So it's more of a chicken and the egg issue. But I will say that the parent-child relationship can go away, and also turnover to homeowners as soon as possible is also something that I'm very in favor of. So again, I think, with the proper guardrails in place, districts can be a really good thing. And without it, I think, unfortunately, properties like mine, and I know many others in the city, will continue to remain undeveloped. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Michael Kelly.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I want to say I really like the red shoes on the gentleman that spoke earlier. One of the biggest problems that I have in the area that I live in 17482 East 98th Way, Commerce City, Reunion, is it seemed to me Oakwood Homes made a lot of promises when we moved in here, and they broke a lot of promises. For example, the Second Creek is supposed to have a park in it, and it's really more of a trail, which unfortunately is closed right now, but I think there was part of a lot of promises that were broken. Secondly, it seems like a lot of the infrastructure we do have in place does not adhere to any kind of 100-year flood capability. For example, 96th Avenue was a big mess and closed for a long, long time, which forced a lot of traffic on 104th. So 104th became very congested for the first time in a long, long time. And it appears to me that we fixed 96, but it still won't be able to handle the same kind of rains that we just had about a month ago. Thirdly, park safety was brought up earlier. It seems to me that our parks have an insufficient number of lights. I know that solar lights cost half as much as normal street lights. It seems kind of strange to me that on Tower we have lights every 50 feet or 50 yards, and in the parks we don't do that. We don't repeat that same thing for safety purposes. So I think the council should consider that. Now, coming back to the metro districts, my feeling is we've talked about the parent-child relationship, and of course, everybody's in agreement that the Reunion Metro District is basically taxation without representation. That was a big mistake, and if it seems like the city has no ability to get rid of metro districts, that what we should do maybe is create a new parent and suck out the life of the old parent, if that's possible, or the city themselves take over the RMD's role of managing all the other districts. I would be very strongly in favor of a new Reunion Metro District that has a membership that includes one from each of the other metro districts. Okay, so in other words, all the metro districts would have a say in what the RMD does in the future. Okay, so in other words, we can't get rid of the problem. Maybe we just change what the structure is slightly to adhere and keep the old stuff in place. In other words, some people have said metro districts can work. I agree with that. They can work if they're done properly. And unfortunately, we have a structure that we've got in place that is not benefiting everybody. We have very high taxes, yet it sounds like we don't have anything to keep from having higher taxes in the future. How does one metro district distribute its current burden across the other metro districts. The only way I see that to happen is have a new parent in place to distribute all the responsibility and all the bonds and stuff across the whole city, all right? So that we can end up basically with equal representation and equal taxation across all the metro districts. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Maria Noble. All right, thank you very much. Stephen Douglas. Oh, let me give the next ones then. Stephen Douglas, Lynn Neely Edmonds, Michael Stegman, and Paul Wielander.
Good afternoon, Council. I give my address. Steve Douglas, 10974 Unity Parkway. Thank you for having this listening session. And, you know, we've had this in the past a year ago. We've been September 14th, 2022. And we've been kicking this can down the road for too long. I know they had a consolidated agreement, you know, with the big developer in order to actually start that big development in Reunion. And as you heard prior, developers came in up north and they didn't have to have a metro district. We actually currently have commercial developer on Tower in 96 that didn't ask for a metro district and is actually going to develop commercial. So I think the only way, you know, a lot of things have been said. I'm not going to repeat anything that someone else said. I appreciate everything that people have said because it really is beneficial. I'm against going forward and having metro districts. I think we need a service plan. And basically that would be for developers who are going to develop residential communities, period. Have transparency, accountability, ethics, regulations, legal reform, financial control of what they're doing, but it's not putting them back of the citizens forever. So basically when they build, their costs are in the structure of the homes. So when they're done building, they walk away. The development can either create an HOA or, like the lady said, a metro district, but I wouldn't do a metro district. The word metro district has been destroyed, and I think we need to turn over a new leaf here. 98% of Commerce City is built out. So why continue to have the same tool that ruins people years after? I sat in a metro district for where I lived, and I was the only resident on that board. I had a voice, but nothing was ever done except for the changing of the times of the rec center. So we have a developer comes in, builds a pool across on South Lawn that's the size for a apartment complex, not for a growing community. That's why you see these rec centers, and the hole they had for years is we are building infrastructure for our residents. So parks and recreation centers. Well, you know what? That tool is gone. The city has a 1% sales tax. They built these a new rec center up north. They redid the one down here. They put in the water park. So there are mechanisms for that, and that doesn't sunset. That's 1% sales tax that you can use smartly. Developer comes in, if there's a park to be built, let the city build a park based off the people who live there. And if there is a mill that's going to be issued, let that mill be 5% or so to go on to be taxable, so they can be able to write that off. But I'm not for that, and I think the only way Chambers is going to be done, or anything with the developers like Turnberry or Reunion, is to have a material modification. So if they're doing a major project that's going to cost the residents money, the only way that Reunion is ever going to be able to go forward is to have material modification. Basically would have to separate and make sure that everybody who lives within that district is paying what they're supposed to based on amount of years they've been there, because the cost they're building for filing 38, 39, 40 is only going to have maybe 1,200 people, which is right now is only going to equate maybe $3.2 million towards Chambers, when they should be shouldering the huge portion of that load going into that development. Same thing, Reunion Ridge. I know Reunion had people they bought on board to do amenities and rec centers within were Union Ridge. They scratched that. They're supposed to build a three-part golf course on the west side of Chambers between 112th by King Supers. That's not gonna happen. They want to share back. They had a conditional use, they had a consolidated agreement for 20 years. Shea did, Oakwood got it, they had it for 3 years, they want to continue it for 10 years. So be careful of what you choose to do, because you're gonna burden the future residents. So we need to really listen and make sure the policies that go through are not gonna hurt future homeowners. It's not for us or you on the council, your time, it's the policies you put in, it's gonna have an effect on the future of the residents. So don't do things that are gonna only help right now. You do things so it outlives you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Lynn Neely Edmonds.
Good afternoon, Lynn Neely Edmonds, 14700 East 104th Avenue, Unit 1604. So I don't know much about the metro districts, but I do know that over off of 104th Avenue, we don't have enough grocery stores, we don't have enough restaurants, and we don't have enough retail. And I have to leave my community in order to go to restaurants, grocery stores, and retail. So if I'm leaving Commerce City to go to different cities, there's other residents who are leaving Commerce City to go to residents, which I would estimate that you all are losing money. Probably millions of dollars by us going outside of Commerce City. So as far as the Metro District, I looked at my tax bill, and I'm paying over $1,400 a year to Metro District, who I don't even know who that is, what they do, how they're helping me. So there's no transparency, there's no accountability, there's no education and outreach to the residents. And based upon what I'm hearing today, it has been a problem in our community, and we need to fix it. And if that means to have a continued moratorium on metro districts, then I think the city council should vote on that. But if you decide that we should have metro districts, then something needs to be put in these, I guess, service plans to either allow us as citizens, residents, and taxpayers to be on these boards so that we can have more transparency and more accountability. We also should include some type of language in these contracts and these service plans in order to have more grocery stores, more retail, and more restaurants, because we have to have amenities in our communities, and we have to have places to go for our children, and we do have to have communities. We work hard every day to purchase our homes and to live in our homes, while other people, these developers, are making money, billions upon billions, millions upon millions, and you all are responsible for the citizens of Commerce City. And we pay money and taxpayer dollars, whether it's into Commerce City, whether it's into the Metro District, whether it's to the fire department, to the school district. We are paying our money, and we want services, and we want infrastructure, and we want grocery stores, restaurants, and retail.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Michael Stegman.
Hey, how y'all doing? Thank you very much for coming today. Mike Stegman, 9367 Richfield Street, Commerce City, Buffalo Highlands neighborhood. Wasn't really planning on talking today, but a couple of the folks said some stuff that, I wanted to add on to or give some perception. Not a huge fan of the Metro District. I don't think we're getting a lot of benefit out of it. If I think through, we're paying 57.26 mil, for Metro District. Also got 14 mil of Commerce City North infrastructure, right? So if I think about paying infrastructure costs, I'd rather it, be in the price of my home right? The budget would all be the same, right? If I look at this when I'm moving in, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a $3,000 house payment and a $5,700 tax bill. You know, I'm gonna either look for a cheaper house, you know, or, you know, it's all gonna be the same amount that I'm gonna spend, right? So if I'm gonna work it into the price of the house for infrastructure and pay $550 for the house instead of $450, right? I'm still coming out paying the same amount of money, right? So, you know, when we go to turn over the house, sell it to somebody else, you know, or just, you know, when we're doing comps for other people, you know, for valuations of houses in Commerce City, you know, having a $450,000 house doesn't necessarily attract certain people into Commerce City, right? So, you know, 550,000 may, right? Oh, this is one of those better neighborhoods in the north, right? So it's a perception thing that metro districts give kind of a false indication of, you know, what your money's going to go to, right? So I don't know. Our board hasn't all been officially turned over for every section of it. I know there's a lot of chaos. I've heard from everybody else, so I don't want to kick that can down the road and keep beating the horse. The other thing I wasn't sure of, and just don't think there's something, but, you know, businesses in Colorado, you have to file quarterly with Secretary of State. You know, so I'm not sure, is there any type of oversight in that regard, you know, for metro districts as far as having to file with the city of, you know, what their promises were versus what their, you know, what their status is, and what kind of oversight and you know, if there's anything that can hold them accountable to the promises that are being made, right? So, you know, that would be something that would be a nice to have if it's not already in place, and if we do move forward with metro districts. I know we can't change the past, but if we're going to look forward to the future, you know, just the oversight of some consistencies from one metro district to the next would be, you know, a very, very valuable thing for our neighborhoods. Thanks. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Paul Wielander?
Paul Wielander. I live at 10030 Mobile Street. I'm in West Buckley Ranch, Metro District. About 7 years ago, I was looking for a place to retire, and I wanted to back up the back of our house facing east towards an open space. And I happened to find that in Buckley Ranch in Commerce City, and that's where we ended up moving in 2018. I didn't know how fortunate I was actually moving there. I could have wound up anywhere. I could have wound up in a completely different metro district. What happened when I moved in, we were still just our own little HOA. One of the things I had to do, which irritated me, I had to fill out this paperwork, send it to Vista Management, which was over on the other side of Westminster, to get approval for my backyard. I wanted to have it in before I actually moved in, but I didn't know what plants I was going to put in. So it was disapproved. So I had to go back and put in plants and trees that I was actually possibly going to put in, and I drove all the way over to Westminster. I was not able to talk to the person who was actually making the decisions about my backyard. It did get approved, but what I'm trying to say is that it was frustrating to me to have somebody who didn't know me, who didn't know my backyard, had never seen it, never talked to me, never seen it, was making decisions on my behalf. I think it applies to whatever we do as far as HOAs and metro districts. I did not know when I moved in that there was a plan underfoot by a guy you guys know, Benjamin Huseman, getting together with Charles Wolfensberger, and they formed, taking the 3 HOAs in our Buckley Ranch Metro District and merging them together. I like that idea. One of the reasons I did like it is that it went from control, at least with the HOA, from somebody over in Westminster who really couldn't care less about me, to local control. And I ended up sitting on the board. Craig, you're on the board as well, of our Metro District. And it helps because then when there are local problems, they can talk to your neighbor rather than somebody who's living someplace else. And so that's the part I appreciate about the Metro District. The other thing is that what Mr. Wolfensberger talked about, Charles did, about keeping the rate flat. What a blessing that is to have where I happen to live. And I could have been in another one where my house goes up, the value of my house goes up, everything would be going up in the rate, the mill levy. So I appreciate that so much. I want to piggyback also on a couple of comments made about infrastructure and services. When I moved in 2018, it's pretty wide open. The growth, and I'm sure you're aware of that, the growth in the north has been phenomenal. The residential, the apartments, the traffic, and I'm thinking, whoa, I mean, how is the infrastructure back from 10 years ago going to supply the support of a population that may double or triple or quadruple? That's a concern. And it just seems to keep going. When I look at Tower Road out there now, it seems more residential coming in. Where, as the one lady said, where are there going to be the services? The other part of that, which I think is sad, is that for a lot of our services, we go to Brighton. My wife and I go to Brighton. We've got Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, some other stores. We go up to Brighton. We also will go locally to King Soopers. But I think it's a shame that we don't have those services locally. And finally, I want to say to each of you, thank you for being here. I don't know if all the city council couldn't make it or not, but I appreciate you guys being here. I know you're busy. I know this is a whole big headache, and it's not easy to resolve. One of the things, and I don't know how this can be done, but if we can have, when people move in, number one, when people move in, that somehow they know what they're getting into. Because I think it's a shock when they find out, oh boy, I had no idea. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wiehlander. I have more than 3 left. 2 more. Okay, thank you very much. So next, Christy Pollard, Robert Anima, Andrew Amador, I'll just do the last 2, Devinder Sandhu, and Anthony Stellato in that order. So Christy Pollard.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I've had the opportunity to speak to council a number of times. My name is Christy Pollard, and I'm the Executive Director of the Metro District Education Coalition. It's no surprise to any of you here that we've got a housing crisis in Colorado. We have a cost of housing crisis all across the state. The Bell Policy Center recently conducted a housing needs analysis and found that an additional 500,000 homes will need to be built over the next 7 years to meet our existing demands. These are homes for our teachers, for our firemen, for our grocery store clerks. Lack of housing is exacerbating the affordability of homes all across the state, so much so that policymakers at all levels of government are calling for solutions to this challenge. Just this week, Governor Polis issued an executive order doing everything in his power at the state level to expeditiously allow for the development of more affordable housing. Metro districts are a tool, not the only tool, but a tool that allow communities like Commerce City to build the necessary public infrastructure like streets and sewer that every residential community needs, while helping to keep the cost of housing more affordable. By allowing these streets and sewer to be built with low interest, tax-exempt bonds and spread the cost out over time, it allows the cost of each individual home to be lower. The alternative, as others have said, is to build the cost of the infrastructure into the cost of each home, which could add anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 into the base price of every single home. That's a big number, and that is a barrier to home ownership for many. Finally, commercial development does require workforce housing and a sustainable customer base. Affordable housing is an important piece of the economic development ecosystem, and metro districts play a role in helping to build these important communities while helping to keep the cost of housing more affordable. I also want to address, there was a speaker who talked this morning about Title 32 at the state level and nothing being able to be done. And I just want to highlight a couple of changes that were made just this year to Title 32 that I believe provide protections to our residents and our homeowners. And those are required mill levy caps and required debt caps. Those must be placed in a service plan, and those are determined by folks like yourselves at the city council or at the county level. Really appreciate the ability to come before you today and hope that council will consider the opportunities that you all have to put sidebars and protections in place through the service plan. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pollard. Robert Anima? Okay, I'll come back to him. Andrew Amador.
Good morning, members of council. Andrew Amador, 7234 East 73rd Avenue in Commerce City. I'm gonna just kind of rewind just a little bit. With the average house in Denver, the median house is $563,000, which is down 3% from last year. If we add the cost of infrastructure to every single house to the tune of $50,000 to $100,000, that puts the average median house in Commerce City, I would just say, over $600,000. We did hear from one community member who stated that wages for employees has not kept up with inflation and now rising interest rates, which in my opinion also makes home ownership out of reach for a lot more people. We have a bunch of working families in our community, and they have children. And they've had to make some really hard decisions, and I'm gonna call them family decisions, because families who have kids cannot afford to have their kids move out because they cannot afford an average median home. I want to say that I'm not opposed to metro districts. The moratorium is a good stopgap right now for a more thoughtful conversation of the current situation. I agree with community member Roger Japp around mill levy caps and what that looks like and how that's written into potentially future mill levies. We did hear that maintenance fees are low in the metro districts and maintenance is lacking. I would also draw your attention to the lack of maintenance in the core city around streets, around sidewalks, etc. But that's not the issue. It's really around sources of funding and the uses of how you use that. And I would just, in a nutshell, say that at this council should definitely take a look at a unified city when we talk about where funding is being driven to for maintenance, if you will, and that it's just balanced citywide. And I guess where I go is that if the core city is paying their taxes to develop the Northern Range, that's not equitable. However, developers should pay their share along with maybe, and so here's the caveat, that if the city decides that they want to help with infrastructure, what that looks like. What I would say is that hopefully this council or the city council in the future can build better relationships with South Metro Sanitation District and Water. In 2015, I believe it was, there was a study of 10 building types. And the 10 building types was a single family residential home, multifamily structure, a commercial building, a car wash, a brewery, etc. And what was found was that The water and sanitation district fees were double of what Denver's was across the board. And that's a big statement. And I think from an economic development standpoint, that Denver is able to blow the doors off of economic development and then attracting businesses to Denver on that side of the line instead of Commerce City, which impacts why we don't have sit-down restaurants, breweries. I mean, the development fees are high. So I think it's a balance of how we go about this. And I did hear one community member say, and it is known as economic development, that first the rooftop comes, then the gas stations come, and then everything kind of pencils out. So in that kind of succession. So again, I would just ask that this council be thoughtful about lifting a moratorium and putting some guardrails in place with metro districts. I can tell you that I looked at moving into a different community outside of Commerce City, and right there on the paperwork, it said taxes $12,000 and up. And where I'm at in the core city is nothing compared to 12,000. So I would ask that the metro districts, or when folks are buying houses, that that's very transparent and upfront so that folks are not blindsided on the tail end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amador. Devinder Sandhu?
Hello, Council. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all. Thank you to all for taking your valuable time on a Saturday, and as well as all of the city staff who's trying to help with this, and all the residents who have turned out in a very good number, trying to talk about the Metro District. And I've been working within Commerce City for years as a small developer and a business owner. And metro districts is a way that we're giving a lot of power to handful of people who have the authority to put enormous amount of taxes on the homeowners and the commercial developments. And one example I would like to say is I have been able to acquire a couple pieces of commercial property within Commerce City. And the way Metro District work is I do not only pay the taxes on the piece of land that I acquired. Let's say if I build a $10 million product on 2.5 acres of land, now they are taxing the overall project on in those metro districts. It's not just that you're paying your taxes based off the value of the land. So that's a big drawback within Commerce City to engage or, trying to get any development going. Up on 120th and Chambers, I've acquired that property in 2013. I was not able to attract, even though it's a great site, and I was not able to, attract any developer to come to Commerce City for years. I've been to ICSCs in Vegas. I've done enormous amount of work, and finally I say, you know what, either go bankrupt or be creative, and which I took the approach, and I built a gas station, brought Santiago's, and even the next door veterinarian hospital is already up and running from August 3rd, which is 24-hour vet clinic, which we didn't have one in the area for the residents. And I had to be creative. I had to build the whole thing in order for them to agree to come to that site. And same thing, I'm having challenges for 96 and Tower that I'm trying to develop. I'm a local. I've been creative. I've been working very hard, and some of the things that metro districts, they are not regulated. It's like a developer can put together a paperwork that benefits them. And the way another, person said, they have their manager, his sister or brother all on the board and nobody else, and there's no way out of it. So I hired attorneys, just to get on the board because it's so hard to get on those boards. I had to hire an attorney, pay the fees, now I'm on the board. And the position I got offered on the board is the way down at the bottom where I don't get to make any decision. It's like you're there, but you got to take what they got to give you. Another thing with the Metro District is, let's say if I bought a property and they spent $1 million to improve that portion of the property, and if I was to offer them that $1 million today, hey, okay, you put in the money, you borrowed it from somebody, I give you that money back, and we're even. That's not the case. That is not the case. You are enrolled into a whole subdivision. So let's say if this is a 240-acre subdivision, and if all of that 240 acres stay empty, guess what? And I'm the first developer to go in there, I'm already bankrupt because I have to carry all that payment till other people come on board and, it have a balancing point, which is very ridiculous, and I did not know a lot about it, till I got into it, and it was too late for me as an owner to back up, So, I mean, it's not a proper way to do things, but, if it was managed properly, it could be a good way to go about things, but that's not the case. Right now, it's all about getting the developers rich who are, saying something and trying to do something else on the other side, because they are not, nobody's watching them how much they are borrowing and things of that nature. So again, I think time is coming up. I would, highly urge and request the city council to be supportive of the local developers, and, we're trying to do good for the community, and I see a lot of good support, and I want to thank you.
Thank you very much. Anthony Stellato.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here, Council. Anthony Stellato, 16659 East 106 Place. I really didn't have much to say other than I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard. I dislike my Metro District. Words I hear tonight or today are transparency and accountability. I've been here 19 years. I know at some point we were supposed to have the ability to get on the board of the Metro District. To this day, from what I understand, is we would only have a minority on the board. The developers still have the majority. 19 years is a long time. They're not accountable. In other states where I've lived, we didn't have Metro Districts. If we didn't like the way the city was handling it, we can actually vote. We can't seem to vote off our Metro District people. Transparency, very few people know about the expenses that they're wasting our money on, such as having an outside agency run our rec center. It's very pricey, and there's no way to deal with them because they have a monopoly on it. They've made lots of promises, they don't fulfill. They tell us about this pool we're supposed to get in, and they put in a waiting pool, and they call it a win. There's nothing good I could say about the Metro District. I was hoping it would be different in these 19 years. And one last thing, I hear people talking about, how they're able to put off prices and not build prices into the house, the cost of the house. The other piece that we're not talking about are redundant positions, right? Every time you have a different company, a different Metro District, you have positions such as accounting, such as finance, where you have additional expenses which you're paying for. Whereas if it was just a city, we'd have an accounting department. Now I have to pay my Metro District to have their own accountants, to have their own attorneys. And those are all duplicated and added into our taxes. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stellato. John, do we have anyone on Zoom? One person, okay.
Mr. Bush, if you can hear us, you should be able to unmute and speak. If you want.
Can't hear him.
You haven't unmuted.
Nothing there? Okay. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak who didn't sign up yet? No? Okay, thank you. I'm going to give the council members an opportunity to speak as well, and thank you. Councilmember Hurst?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank everybody in the community for coming out and speaking your mind. I think this is a really important conversation that we're going to continue to have as a community. I hear both sides. I have been here on council for about 4.5 years, and the discussion around the Reunion Metro District has been at the forefront of a lot of conversations in this community, and I think for good reason. I do think, I have 3 pages of notes, and I think over and over again, I continue to hear, first of all, representation. I do believe that we need to, solve that problem. Do like the idea where, at least the president of each sub-board in Reunion should be on the major board. But I also think, moving forward, that no developer should ever have a majority on the board of directors for any metro district. I liked Mr. Japp's idea about finding a way to have board members at the beginning that represent the community, as well as maybe a minority vote from the developer, just to ensure that the two sides are understanding what development must happen per the development agreement, and then but also having, whether it's city council or something along those lines, to be clearly representing the people who are buying those homes at the moment, honestly, as it's happening. And so I think the hardest part for us is going to be going backwards, like going back and looking at agreements that happened 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and being able to have an impact on those. Those are financial agreements that I wouldn't know where to start legally on how to do something like that. We would have to get, I'm sure, quite a bit of legal advice on how to even approach that. But I do think that there are also some positives that we can point to in the community. The flat tax rate, I happen to live in one of those as well and was part of the board that did that. And I thought it was very interesting in the process of doing that. Just the same type of information we heard tonight is what we were dealing with then. But I also would say I'm one of the people that wouldn't live here if there wasn't a metro district, because I would have been priced out of Commerce City. I would not have been able to afford my house or even looked at a house in this area. And this is the city I was moving to, this city, because my work was 4 miles away. I had a 9-month-old, and my wife was a stay-at-home mom. And so I needed to be close. And so I really appreciated the ability to buy a house back in 2015 for the situation that we were in. And so I'm trying, I want to find a balance. I think moving forward, I want to gain a better understanding on a couple things. I think, ever since I've moved here, I've heard that, the South approved us to grow and get bigger as a city, but the South also wanted us to pay, the North and the growth in the North to pay for itself. So there's quite a bit of responsibility in public improvement that the city is responsible for, and finding the right funding methods for that, outside of a general improvement district. How does the city pay for their portion of the growth without impacting the citizens in the South who've likely already paid off their house and, or lived there for 30 years, 40 years in certain situations? I'm not sure they should be paying for the streets in the neighborhood that I live in. And so,
Councilmember Hurst, could you?
There's no time limit, so I don't think I've exceeded 5.
Oh, he wasn't setting, I was doing it on my phone.
Oh, well, okay. I just had 3 more points
wrap
then.
it up.
Yep.
Okay.
I think education is continue to be key. I think there should be a standard, but The first time I ever read about a Metro District on my closing documents, I was moving from Nevada. I had never heard of a Metro District before. But you better believe I read quite a bit that night about what I was walking into. And I think that's key, is from a community standpoint, from the Metro District itself that you're moving into, from the city itself. We need to continue to create opportunities to educate. I think I've said this countless times since being on council, is that we need to be able to explain the complexity of the government system that we have here. You know, I don't have a say in what happens at the firefighting district or the library district. Unless you go there, speak your voice, get on the board and have a vote, we really don't. And if you look at your line items, we have control for the NIGID and the city mill levies, but a lot of the control in the complexity of our government is spread out through several different boards. And so, you know, making sure that we're educating, I think, is incredibly important, because it leads to quite a bit of frustration, for myself included. And quite honestly, the discussion we're having today is why I'm sitting up here. It started with a misunderstanding and an incredible amount of frustration with my HOA and Metro District. And so I went and got on the board, which ultimately led to me getting on city council. And it was simply out of the same frustration I'm hearing in your voices today. And so I hear you. I want to fix this. I think it's pretty complex, trying to go backwards. But moving forward, I think there's some really good ideas on the table. I think the state has set the stage for us to have a bigger impact on setting mill levy caps and debt caps. And I think that's the first start to the conversation to improving these moving forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Kim? And if we could be mindful of time. Thank you.
There's no time limit. This is a community meeting. Let your representation speak, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Amador. I'm only suggesting that this was called a listening session, so we want to be sure that we're giving our attention to your remarks. We have a study session on Monday night where we will be taking your remarks, notes that have been taken during the meeting as well, and discussing them on Monday night at the study session. You'll all be able to hear our conversation then as well. Thank you very much. Councilmember Kim?
So where do I begin? First and foremost, I think, let's just be real here. This is a master slave district within the RMD community. It is the fact that we are being taxed without representation. It is the fact that because we do have bad actors within the area, that has caused other developers who are trying to build out here to be the I don't want, lack of a better word, scapegoat essentially, when it comes to when they're trying to build something out and we're having to put this moratorium in place. You know, when you're a new buyer, you come into the city, you're like, oh, great, taxes are only like $2,000 or $3,000 a year or whatever. Psych. Here's another, 88 mils on top of that, whatever the case may be. So the fact that you're going to be charged another $5,000, $6,000 on top of that, it is truly unjust. And to say that for the South to pay for the North, as far as with the North build out, I think that is also unjust. I think what Ms. Pollard said about the fact that we're trying to get affordable housing in here, I don't think affordable housing is 700 square feet at $1,600 without utilities. I don't think that is considered affordable as well. So there are some major issues here all in all. And if keeping this moratorium in place until we get this stuff figured out is the right answer, then by all means, I am good for it. I think I do like the fact that when it comes to the fact, we talked about development, having a development site with government oversight, as to what Mr. Frank had said, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So the fact of saying that maybe is there potentially a chance to have city own a piece or a small piece of that land to have that oversight on there? Would the development be interested in doing something like that, so that we can build that partnership, so that we can ensure that we are doing the right thing amongst citizens and residents who live in this city, so that we are not being quote unquote, I'm not going to say the word I was thinking of because I know how vocal I can get, as I was quoted by saying how much I hate golf. with that said, you know, I think the city oversight regarding Title 32 is something we need to look at. I also believe that, you know, if we are going to have metro districts in this place, there are a few things I wrote down on my board here. I'm sorry, on my paperwork here that said I think what we need to have. A couple things. Number one is a clear vision, defining the goals and objectives as far as what exactly the metro district is going to be. Having a comprehensive plan that outlines the governance framework, the budget process, service delivery, transparency with residents and its partners. With residents and partners. I cannot say that enough because how sick and tired I am right now of the RMD and the fact that we are being taxed without representation, period. I'm probably going to get recused for some reason at some point on that remark. Stakeholder engagement. We need to have transparent collective feedback with residents, local businesses, address concerns, allow for community involvement to ensure that they're involved in that. A financial management aspect of it where we have transparency amongst the partners, the stakeholders and residents. Having the partnership with service delivery aspect with water, sewage, waste, transportation, maintenance of public spaces. What is that all going to look like? Collaboration with local authorities, good working relationship with local government, good working relationships with local government. Do we have that now? I don't believe we have that at all, period. Sharing information amongst the community and partners is a must. I honestly believe, for example, for Mr. Devinder and also with Mr. Frank, there is ways that we can get around this, to ways that we can make sure that we work together as a flippin' partner, as a partnership within this community to make sure that we are, no kidding, gonna get quote unquote screwed essentially by anything that gets built out here. That is where my head is at right now, and I know we have a bunch of bad actors in the community, and I'm sure they're listening in on this as well, but how do we make it right? We need to make it right. We need to have that partnership. We need to be able to talk to each other to have that full-blown transparency. Right now, I don't see them in this room, and right now, we don't have that. That is all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kim. Councilmember Douglas.
How do I turn my mic on?
Pardon me?
How do I turn my mic on? Oh, it's in the, no, it's in here.
Hidden by a Kleenex box.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I am so glad that you all are here today. This is what good government looks like. And we have been bamboozled into thinking that we have to kowtow to the wealthy. That has got to stop. Public-private partnerships have become normalized. I call it the pot of gold at the end of the taxpayer rainbow. Guaranteed clients, guaranteed income every year because you pay your taxes every year, and guaranteed profits. And we have drank the Kool-Aid. It's time that we stop. We're one of the only, I think we are the only state in the union with Tabor. We're the only state that has metro districts. There is not an affordable housing shortage. There are the greedy who have artificially inflated the market to make us believe that it is worth it to pay the prices that they are insisting that we pay because they control all of the entities that we need to survive. They control the necessities that we need to survive. It is time that the people take over and put an end to the insatiable greed that is making us believe that all of this is normal. It's not. In the past, it has been that the developers have access to the people who make the decisions. It is time that the people have that same access. I want you to know that I am accessible anytime. I want to hear from you. I also want you to kind of look back on what was said today. The people who support the metro districts are the ones who are making their livelihood from metro districts in one way or another. Think about that. They're the ones who supported the metro districts because they benefit from them financially. They make their livelihood off of it. Think about all that was said today. I would like to continue these listening sessions on a myriad of topics that affect your lives here in this city. I want to hear from the people who live here and are here for our quality community for a lifetime, which we are not delivering right now. But we can deliver it if we work together. Leadership and community. Really, really important. Community. I want to see Commerce City be the model city that everyone else, other municipalities look to go, wow, how did they do it? How did they make this remarkable community that services people? Education is key. Education has become privatized. Go back to public education and then revamp the education system so it's not based on property taxes, because lower income areas don't have higher property taxes. What does that mean? They don't have the funding to provide the good education that we deserve. We deserve the best. So thank you so much for coming out today. I can't thank you enough. I have the same passion that Councilmember Kim displayed. I don't speak quite as loudly as he does, but the fire is in my belly. So thank you so much all for coming out today. I really, really, really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time out to come, and I had the opportunity to listen to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Douglas. 4 years ago, I promised to rein in Metro District abuses and bring transparency and accountability to government. So here we are. It's taken quite a long time to get to this point. As was noted earlier, we have discussed Metro Districts numerous times, and our decision to do a moratorium was to simply stop in place so that we could figure out the best practices if we were going to move forward with Metro Districts or find alternatives to Metro Districts. I really, really appreciate everyone coming today. I appreciate the City Council for supporting this idea of having the listening session today on Metro Districts. I think it's been a very important conversation, and to hear from all of you and both of you. It also demonstrates to me that there are topics that we need to have conversations on other Saturdays to bring in other residents of Commerce City. And I hope that we can continue, as Councilmember Douglas said, to make this just the first of many listening sessions here in Commerce City on Saturdays. I would also like to say thank you to Mr. Guardiola for helping with the translation earlier, and also John Bergeli and other staff who are here today. Thank you so much. I have multiple pages of notes There were many, many great ideas, some of which I hadn't heard before. I am very excited for what we're going to discuss on Monday night, and I hope you will all tune in. By the way, you may have noticed on the screen that there is a QR code in the corner. That is a survey. They call it Menti, M-E-N-T-I. It's virtual. You can do it as you go along. You can just point your camera at your phone camera at the QR code, and you could pull that up. As John Bergeli mentioned, there's also a written survey on the c3gov.com/Metro District page. So I hope that you will encourage any friends and neighbors who weren't able to attend today to put their notes in writing as well. We will be looking at all of your notes on Monday night. It won't be as formalized as it would normally be, because my motion was to do this on Saturday and have the study session on Monday. So it's happening at a very rapid pace. Thank you all again. And it meant a lot to hear from you all. Thank you.
Mayor Busby.